18-year-old Henry Novak was just walking home after a night out in Southampton, and what happened next would shock the entire country. He was a young first-year finance student at Southampton University, his whole life ahead of him, and the only mistake that Henry made that night was bumping into scumbag Vikrum Digwa. Vikrum Digwa, 23, was walking down the road towards Henry, carrying a 21cm Sikh ceremonial blade. Now, it's worth noting that this wasn't a religiously motivated attack. We have enough of those problems in the UK as it is, but it was definitely a racially motivated attack. Now, Henry saw Vikram carrying this large 21cm kirpan blade and said to him, presumably because he'd never seen one before, "Why are you carrying that?" Digwa was incensed by this challenge and decided to show him instead by saying, "Because I'm a bad man," and then driving his blade into his abdomen. As Henry tried to flee, he was stabbed a total of 5 times. In the abdomen, the back of both legs, and in his chest and lungs, delivering the fatal blow. The Sikh community in the UK is one of the communities that has integrated the best into British society and culture, with thousands upon thousands of Sikhs up and down the country who are here for a better life. This isn't a religious issue as such, however, it is his religion that allowed him lawfully to carry this 21cm blade. But this is more of a sign of the level of social degradation that we're suffering in the UK. The divisionary politics, the overt racism, the two-tier policing, and the odds being stacked against the young native indigenous population. Now, Digwa didn't call for an ambulance or the police immediately. In fact, he didn't do that at all. He actually took his phone out and filmed Henry while he was crying on the floor, saying he couldn't breathe. It was Digwa's brother who rang the police, where he lied about what he'd seen, said there was no weapon involved, and that it was in fact him and his brother who were subject to a racial assault by Henry. When the police finally did arrive, they found Henry lying in a pool of his own blood. However, despite this, and Henry saying, "I can't breathe, I've been stabbed," the police officer, the criminally incompetent police officer, said to him, "I don't think you have, mate."
I can't breathe.
These were Henry Novak's final moments.
Been stabbed.
You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? I don't think you have, mate.
Repeatedly pleading with police officers as he lay dying. Instead of treating him, they arrested him.
They dragged him out by his belt through the gravel, lay him on his front. They handcuffed him, read him his rights, lay him face down with a mouthful of blood. Henry was just able to muster one more time the words, "I can't breathe." He then died. It was 2 or 3 more minutes until the police actually ascertained that Henry had indeed suffered fatal knife wounds to his lungs. Digwa at this point still wasn't arrested, still wasn't a suspect, and he was treated respectfully. At no point was he handcuffed, at no point was he read his rights, because Henry, who was now lying dead face down on the floor, handcuffed, was assumed to be the villain, just because Digwa had said to the police that I was a victim of racial abuse. We live in a society now where the accusation of racism is held higher to the police as a crime than murder. Yet the police superintendent will come out and say there is no two-tier policing. There are no woke DEI policies that target young white British people and protect brown, black and Asian and ethnic minorities and religious minorities in this country over its native indigenous population. So this really wasn't just a random stabbing. This is a sign of the overall degradation of British society and culture. Multiculturalism has failed, and Vikrum Digwa was given a free pass because he was a Sikh and because he wasn't white. When you mix this with incompetent two-tier policing, a two-tier judicial system, pathetic DEI policies pushed by local government, central government and the police, and training institutions such as schools, we have an anti-white racism problem in the UK. And this anti-white racism, it isn't just tolerated, it's actively encouraged. I myself have recently witnessed anti-white racism to quite an extreme degree, and I've been in contact with the police. I'm the branch organiser and leader for the Restore Britain Tatton constituency, and on our public Facebook page, a guy decided to leave a comment saying that it's his fantasy to kill white people, that he just wants to kill a white person. He wanted to take out 400 years of generational rage on white people. Now, this person works with children, so I took that very, very seriously, and I've reported him to the police. And if you're that guy and you're watching this video, and there's a good chance you are, then maybe go and find a mirror in your house somewhere and have a really good fucking look at yourself. Keir Starmer and most of the British government, around the time that George Floyd killed himself, they couldn't wait to take the knee. We had droves of footballers and celebrities and all these low IQ morons who couldn't wait to virtue signal by taking the knee. But since Henry was killed, absolute crickets. Until Keir Starmer was pushed into a position when this body cam footage was released to accept that he has to go on camera and do a rather contrived and pretty emotionless statement. This is what happens when you're trying to do all these takes and this little monster gets in the way. So can you go somewhere else, please? Don't step on my laptop, thank you. Okay, just walk straight across it, no problem. Yeah, have a good day. Yeah, there you go. Try and make... If Vikrum Digwa was the victim in this and Henry was the aggressor, cities would be on fire. Keir Starmer would be in his office on his knees grovelling. And people gaslight us, telling us that there isn't a two-tier system, that there isn't anti-white racism in this country. So if you're white, black, brown or green, it doesn't really matter. You shouldn't be ashamed of your history, of your culture, of your ancestry, of your religion. Nobody should. But this is England. And if you come here, you need to subscribe to the laws of the land. There are tens of thousands of Sikhs up and down this country have integrated beautifully into our society. Peaceful, gentle, loving people. Because of Digwa stabbing Henry to death, all these Sikhs are now going to lose their benefit, not their right, to carry their ceremonial dagger. Because we can't have a two-tier system on that either. And there should be no religious exemptions for carrying a 21cm blade. Now, I have been accused, and so have other people from Restore Britain, of using Henry's death to promote Restore Britain, to make it political. But that's not the case. Henry's death was entirely political. Henry died because of politics, because of bad politics that allow this kind of two-tier racist system to exist, which has emboldened certain racial and ethnic groups to not subscribe to the law of the land. They have this idea that they are on a pedestal, and if they're challenged, they just simply cry racist. Restore Britain intends to radically address this and convict anybody and refer them for the death penalty if it's a racially or religiously motivated murder. So rest in peace, Henry, and know that your death will not be in vain. And a Restore Britain government would have pushed for the death penalty for Vikrum Digwa and for his family to be deported. It was his brother who hid the crime and took the knife away, as well as his mother. So what do you think? Do you think Vikrum Digwa should receive 21 years in jail? Or do you think he would be actually a good candidate for the death penalty? Because I don't think he's got any benefit to society. I don't think he'll be rehabilitated. Prisons are a cesspit for racial and religious indoctrination. And remember, there's absolutely no shame in being white. There's no shame in being black or brown or any other colour. But there is deep, deep shame in murdering a young man who had his whole life ahead of him because he asked you why you're carrying a 21cm knife in the street. And because that upset your sense of religious injustice, you decided to stab him. Some of the scenes in Southampton have been pretty shocking. If you're going down there to protest and to make your voice heard, then good, but do it peacefully, do it respectfully, be angry, but you don't need to start throwing wheelie bins at the police officers. I had a look at some of this footage and I can clearly tell that some of these police officers are hurting. Some of them are broken. They're trying to do their best in a system that doesn't support them, in a system that indoctrinates them, from police forces that cherry pick and groom young officers who are far left, who are confused about politics, who are confused about racial and religious issues. What the police don't want is people like me, people with common sense, veterans, people with a high level of moral courage. Because I can just tell you, as sure as eggs are eggs, if I was the officer who attended Henry's death, Digwa would have been on the floor face down within seconds. And Henry, although he probably wouldn't have survived, he certainly wouldn't have died like a dog on the floor. So remember, protest, yes. Be noisy, yes. But do it peacefully. It's what Henry deserves, and it's what his family would want. We need to set the standard for being a moral, strong, yet peaceful society. Take care, everybody. Bye. you.